Hi guys, this is Amy Hiscox with the Audacious project. Today I'm going to chat with some cool cats here in London about fulfilling careers. For more information, please check my website at www.theaudaciousproject.ca. I'm heading into the Covent Garden Market now to talk with Tammy Ross. Tammy founded Women Together, a coaching organization, and she's going to be our first interview.
And I think what kind of worries me a little bit is that it seems like social media and technology is taking the place of relationships for a lot of youth. So we're losing the social skills or the emotional intelligence that comes with building relationships. So that's one thing that concerns me a little bit. And I don't know how much truth there is to that or not, but I do know that my daughter has said that, relationship building in high school is more difficult. So I'm thinking, wow, that's going to be a problem down the road in the work environment. If these kids aren't able to relate to each other, how are they then going to relate to their coworkers, their bosses, their peers, their subordinates down the road? So that kind of worries me a little bit. Having a manager understanding the different age brackets, but also taking the time to do goal setting with each individual is very, very important, because we can kind of broad brush and say that the millennials are this way, but within that segment there's going to be employees that are like you and I, or even like a baby boomer. Like they might have these, I don't want to say old-fashioned values, but they could be a bit different than the ones that are seeking adventure, that kind of thing. So I think a manager is going to have to really sit down with each staff member and say, what excites you, what motivates you, what's going to get you doing what we need, but is going to fulfill your passions at the same time. Like having out-of-the-box conversations, I think, is what needs to happen. Yeah, and I'm just thinking of an example in my mind. Like say a youth is interested in journalism. I think it would be kind of unrealistic to assume that as soon as you got a degree that you're going to walk into some place like Time magazine and you're going to become the editor-in-chief. Like that is just not realistic, right? But that you're passionate about journalism, so you start within that organization or that industry, and you're probably going to have to start at the bottom like everybody else did, right? 95% of us probably started at the bottom of whatever career we chose, but at least you're within that passion stream of what you really want to do. So I can just imagine the energy. Like if you knew you wanted to be a journalist, you're so passionate about it, you get a job at Time magazine or wherever, or even maybe just a local newspaper, and then you learn the skills, you learn the trade, you work your way up to get that dream job that you're actually looking for. Like I think that's a balance of passion and being realistic at the same time.
Next, I'm heading over to Hacker Studios to speak with Titus Ferguson, who is the Executive Director of Unlondon.
A series of small risks, and maybe they're so small as to not be considered risks, but other experiments or projects. That is the best learning environment. They can be things that you just do for yourself. It can be learning a new recipe. It can be connecting with people in a space that you envy, or it can be organizing an event or a small gathering. Doing a bunch of those will help you to find the success that you want, regardless of what it is. If it's a job that involves coordinating people, or if it's a behind-the-scenes role. Because no matter what level it's at, you're going to need to eventually get outside of your comfort zone and actually take on a full-fledged risk. If you've done it when there hasn't been as much on the line, it feels a little less scary to do it. You do both, right? I think that's the balance, right? You do occasionally have to take on things that aren't necessarily what you want, so that you can gain the skills. No matter what role you're in. Right out of school, I took a job as an environmental consultant at a small firm that did environmental assessments and reports. What I've gone to school for, it's what I enjoyed doing, it's what I've wanted to do. If I was to have looked ahead and said, eventually I want to be doing X, Y, and Z, that at the time would have been a really poor decision. But right out of school, need to pay back student loans and generate some income, and I found something that was flexible enough that allowed me to still experiment on the side. That doesn't mean you shouldn't just take whatever comes along. You can also hold out for the right thing, or make your own thing. But don't be so, I don't want to use the word arrogant or presumptive that that's going to always be there, that's always going to work out. You have to be flexible and willing to kind of bend with the wind and take what's available.
Now we make our way over to the offices of downtown London to hear what Katie Ward has to share.
You know, this might sound flaky, but I'm going to put it out there because I remember when I was, after a few years working in the corporate world and feeling, I wanted more, I could achieve more, I'm purpose-driven, I felt like I wanted to do something great in this world. And I went away, and I went away by myself for the weekend, and I sat in my friend's cottage. I borrowed her little cabin, and I literally just put down words. I said international, education, people. I just put down words of things that I knew I was passionate about and things that I knew I cared about. And I just thought, okay, I need to figure this out somehow. I don't know exactly what that means yet, but I know that that's what I want to be doing. And you have to give yourself permission to just not know all the pieces and not even know how they're going to come together. If you do know them, great. You don't know how they're going to come together. So that was the first step for me, to just write it all out and say, okay, this is what I want, and I don't know how it's going to happen. There will always be resistance, and every day I'm 2 years into my company, it's thriving, it's growing, and still there's resistance. And I think that's part of, that fearful part of our brain that just tells us, what are you doing, you're crazy. Or it's your mother, your grandmother that's telling you you're crazy. There's always resistance, and the best way to overcome that is, one, just trusting your gut and just knowing that there's a part of you that knows you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. But there is a little part of importance for that, because when you actually face that fear, so you have resistance, okay, what if you go broke in 6 months? What if you go broke in 6 months? Answer that question. And so I would start to actually write down my worst fears and all of those buts and all of the resistance. I would address them and say, okay, what if that did happen? And then all of a sudden you realize, okay, I'm pretty smart, I can figure this out, I can manage it. So there are risks, and you have to think about them, and I call it the positive power of negative reinforcement. Because if you go through all of the resistance, and if you go through all of the fears you have, you can actually come up with solutions and realize, hey, I can actually do this.
Up next is Jonathan Cregan over at the London Club. He's an accomplished author and founder of the Human Side of Business.
I think what it's all about is, if you see university or higher ed as only about education, only about knowledge, about the accumulation of knowledge, which is essentially how it's been for 600 years or 1,000 years, right? Come and read this topic for 4 years, and you will have the knowledge necessary to succeed in the world. Even though when I was going through, it was still about a 3-year degree, and it didn't actually matter if you had work at the end, because you'd find work anyway. And they would hire you because of that knowledge and the way that you processed information, right? Over the course of 30 years, it shifted to university equals job, right? Which is unfair. So if you just see university as knowledge, I think you've actually limited the possibility for it actually being about the creation of wisdom. At the core of the human experience is awareness, is consciousness. So how do you know that we're talking? Because you're aware that we're talking. So every single human being on the planet is conscious. That's awareness. I mean, what I would basically suggest is they probably stop using their phone for a moment and just sit and watch.
And last but not least, Jason Martell offers some fresh insight and enthusiasm.
University taught me, it gave me a great, tremendous artistic vocabulary. It exposed me to classics. I don't regret my university education. If you think it's a good fit, you should go. It's fun. But I started thinking of everything I wrote. I started thinking, like, you know, I got a female character here and I want to narrate from her point of view, but wait a minute, that's voice appropriation. The audience won't like that. I shouldn't do that. Well, I've got an Asian character here and I want to narrate from that point of view. Oh, that's cultural appropriation. The audience won't like that. I shouldn't do that. I have to write what I know. And suddenly I became crippled by all of these rules on my creativity that I was supposed to follow in order to sort of be a part of this tremendous artistic tradition. And all of the weird, out-of-the-box stuff that I used to do before I got to university, I stopped doing it. And the focus very soon became, well, I've graduated from university now. I know more about art than I've ever known before, but now I gotta pay the bills. I always wanted to be a writer. That was my first love. And I wasn't very popular as a little kid. So a lot of times I think it was, well, if I can't make friends, I'll write friends. You know, if you grow up to be a writer, you're gonna grow up to be poor. And you want the security of a paycheck, or you want to be an artist and you want the security of a paycheck. The best way for us to fund ourselves until we make our big breakthrough is to teach.